Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
When people lose everything, they lose it. Well, that wasn't really the case during the decade-long engineered Great Depression. Upwards of 90% of the population, and I know I hammer this point home a lot, was rural and was somewhat self-sufficient or completely self-sufficient. They knew how to skin a buck, run a trot line, how to grow corn, how to grow wheat, how to grow vegetables in the backyard. They knew how to hunt squirrels and white-tailed deer and elk. They knew how to eat possums. And let me tell you something. Where my family's from on my dad's side in East Texas, all those old World War II vets that I went deer hunting with every year that hunted on our property, they're all dead now, great guys. So actually, I think one of them's still alive. They would tell stories about the Great Depression and how there were almost no deer left, no squirrels left, no rabbits left, hardly any quail or dove, and people were hunting out of season 24/7 because that was their grocery store. That was their grocery store. People make fun of, oh, those hillbillies, they'll eat a possum. They'll eat a raccoon. They'll eat an armadillo. Well, that's because they had food on the table every night. Major universities have estimated that 7 million people died of starvation or from illnesses relating to their malnutrition during the decade-long Great Depression. That's what? 700,000 people or so every year dying of starvation-related illnesses during that decade-long depression. And that's with a population that 90% of them lived in rural areas. Now, today the numbers are exactly reversed. Right at 90% are urban. Of the 10% that live in rural areas, only half of them are self-sufficient. 5% versus 90% of this country is self-sufficient. I've got a couple years' store of food. I've talked about on the radio. If society collapses, the government's going to come confiscate that. But at least I'm trying. At least I try to have a garden. The issue is the globalists have done this to Argentina, to Brazil. They've done it to hundreds and hundreds of other countries in Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe. Don't think for a minute they won't pull this on us to consolidate power and to train us how to submit to them. Now, what did Gerald Celente say here yesterday? He said, this is going to be the year of off with their heads, and it's going to be the year of when people lose everything, they lose it. Now, most of these videos and audio we're about to play have profanity. We've cut most of it out, but there's some mild, stuff. But this is news. This is happening. And if you're watching it on, prisonplanet.tv and don't want to see somebody getting shot, then turn away. But you notice people don't get upset by all the violence on TV that's simulated, but when they see real stuff, it's upsetting. And it should be upsetting. But the issue here is there's a lot of different facets to this. But you've got the school board lady coming up behind him with her bag, hitting him in the back of the head. First he goes up and sprays V for Vendetta on the wall, which is kind of a liberal-style revolution movie. Mainly about, I guess, rebellion of gay people against oppression or whatever. But it's a surveillance state, and the Wachowski brothers who made The Matrix basically put it out. So he sprays V for Vendetta. Are they going to call to ban the movie V for Vendetta because this guy was touched by it? You see, there's real tyranny going on, real oppression. But this poor guy wasn't given real avenues to take his country back. He was a big fan of Media Matters and George Soros. He's a liberal, basically. But you better believe the Southern Poverty Law Center, the ADL right now, have got his computer. And if he ever visited Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.com, they're going to say it's my fault. Even though Paul Watson's gone to his websites and blogs, and where the guy posted, and he appears to be a liberal. And I'm not saying liberals, are inherently evil or they deserve to have their speech shut down. It's just, there's going to be this angle, this push. And as there's more people going postal, and his wife worked for the government, worked for the school district, and he'd been kicked off his government unemployment insurance. And again, I'm against socialism and dependency because it causes things like this where people don't know how to skin a buck or run a trot line. But at least that stimulus money at least goes back to the people and they go out and buy things. That's better than tens of trillions going offshore to shadowy banks. So this is a very, very sophisticated issue. But then you've got the point of a woman charging in. We see this so often. Old ladies fighting off attackers with umbrellas or with their cane. Here comes the old lady. Looks like she's about 69, 70, 71 years old. She comes up and hits him with a big old Coach bag that probably felt like a pillow fight when you were 8 years old. And he just turns around and knocks her to the ground. He looks like he weighs about 350 pounds. He's a big guy. And the issue is that woman should have had a revolver in her purse, and she should have walked up and shot him in the back. Now, I'm not a macho guy. I'm not waving guns around. But I do, and I have on air showed people the fact that if somebody came in here and started shooting, there are multiple people with concealed carries. I don't have a concealed carry. It's my office, my operation. I've got a .357 Magnum with 7 shots in it right here. Sure, I could have a gun with 40 rounds in it, but I like the safety of a revolver that under stress, it's easy to use, doesn't jam compared to other type firearms. I've got a reliable firearm right here. And if somebody ever tries something like that, I will just cold-bloodedly get up against the side of the wall, wait for them to come along, and I will shoot them in the back. I won't macho stand out like a gunslinger. I will maybe get on the floor and wait for them. And I'm going to shoot them. You come to my house, I'm going to shoot you. Try to break in my house, you're dead. Okay, and more guns, less crime is the answer. We're an armed society. We've got a bunch of spoiled brats in this country who don't know how to take care of themselves and who are flipping out and who expect everything for free. You saw what happened on Black Friday a few weeks ago with people stampeding each other, going crazy, fighting over, discounts because there was no sales tax that day. This country, and myself included to a certain extent, I mean, it's all by degrees, is extremely decadent and slovenly. And it's a time bomb. But the military's done actuaries and societal studies on it. So has Homeland Security. They know full well, as things break down, the police, just like in Katrina or just like in the L.A. riots or any other big event, they're going to sit down the road. The firemen, who are the heroes, are going to come in and get shot at by the scum. And then the police are going to come and try to arrest Korean shopkeepers, it doesn't matter, who try to protect their property. But a big crowd comes down the road wanting to burn down my neighborhood, I'm going to go out and shoot them all. I mean, it's real simple. You start coming towards my family, where my wife and kids are at, with torches, and you're setting stuff on fire, I'm going to get in a prone position with a tripod, a .308 rifle, with a backpack full of 30-round magazines, and I'm going to take you out. You see, that's the answer here. I'm not looking for a fight, but I'm here to tell people, every one of those people on that school board should have had a gun and not been victims. Okay, and the minute that guy pulled a gun out and was pointing it at somebody else, you just calmly reach up and calmly squeeze the trigger. That's the secret. Just like you're shooting ducks in a barrel. And so you shouldn't have to have a woman run up behind him heroically, or as the heroine, and hit the guy in the back of the head. So there's that facet. I want to go ahead and play the video of the woman, and this is all up on prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. Why Americans, when Americans lose everything, they start to lose it. And I want to show this video of him spraying V for Vendetta. It's only about a minute long. And we'll show you some different videos from different angles for prisonplanet.tv viewers. For radio listeners, it's all up on prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. But I haven't gone through 1/10 of the different facets of this really Rosetta Stone to see in a microcosm what's happening in society across the board. To be clear, we've been doing searches, and so have other news sites, on this guy. He was on liberal sites, conservative sites. Thank heavens it hasn't come out. He was on my sites yet, but Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com are huge. But this is this guilt by association. Are they going to blame V for Vendetta and the Wachowski brothers film for him spraying a V on the wall? which is just his archetypal image of rebellion. If he would have sprayed a Revolutionary War flag on the wall, would they have blamed America for it? No, these are angry, desperate people. And here's the article: when Americans lose everything, they start to lose it. Falling down, gunman opens fire on school board over economic woes. As Gerald Celente has often warned, when Americans lose everything, they start to lose it. And nowhere was this more apparent than in the case of Clay Duke, a 56-year-old gunman who opened fire on a school board members in protest against his wife being fired and his unemployment benefits running out. Duke spray-painted V for Vendetta sign on the wall before brandishing a gun and telling everyone apart from the school board members to leave the room. Watch what happened next in the video below. The response is to the tragic series of events from both the establishment left and the establishment right will undoubtedly be to try and portray Duke as a nutcase conspiracy theorist whose views are an example of why free speech on the internet needs to be curtailed, despite the fact that both on his Facebook page and another website he recommended, Duke promoted websites from across the political spectrum, including Media Matters, who are usually the first to exploit tragic events like those to sling mud and their political adversaries. And I've called Watson up. He says he saw some of those. He's going to link to those and to some of the other scans. And I've got some of the reported comments by this guy. It looks more like he was against the entire system, like most Americans are. It's come out today. Congress has the lowest approval rating ever reported by Gallup poll. They want to divide us into Republicans and Democrats. Limbaugh divides us into Republicans, Media Matters, and others into Democrats, and then have us fight with each other when it's the ruling class robbing the daylights out of us. And I want to point out, I'm against violence, but this guy was going after the wrong target. A school board? And I got to hand it to one of the school board members, saying, well, I'm the one that did it. Let the others go. I mean, that's the way to do it. I mean, just really, good people, it appears. And that's what we're made up of in this country. We're just compartmentalized to where most people don't see the big picture of what's going on. It continues here. The fact that no one was injured and that Duke ultimately claimed his own life after he'd been shot, he shot himself, has contributed to him becoming a martyr in the Michael Douglas falling down mold. Yeah, shouldn't be a martyr, rather than being considered a deranged lunatic. And Facebook pages in his honor are already attracting members. Duke was stopped when shots from a security guard named Mike Jones wounded him before he took his own life. Despite the fact that it was a gun that stopped the rampage, Time Magazine and others are already blaming the tragedy on the Second Amendment. No, it was a deranged mind, and it was the Second Amendment that stopped him. In a de facto online suicide note posted on Facebook, Duke railed against the financial terrorist that prompted him to take such a drastic course of action. I was just born poor in a country where the wealthy manipulate, use, abuse, and economically enslave 90% of the population. Rich Republicans, rich Democrats, same rich. They take turns fleecing us. No, there's a tiny banking elite that's very corrupt. And the military-industrial complex that manipulate the society. It's not the guy down the street that owns a restaurant, buddy, that's your enemy. Rich Republicans, rich Democrats, same, rich. They take turns fleecing us. Our few dollars pyramiding the wealth for themselves, he wrote. That 95% of the U.S. of A are neo-slaves of the global South. See, that's kind of the liberal thing there. Our masters, the wealthy, do as they like to us. And it just goes on from there. This goes far deeper than someone violently acting upon political grievances. Duke's actions were solely guided by his economic woes, the fact that his wife had lost her job, that the unemployment benefits had run out, and that the future offered no hope whatsoever. No, he'd be homeless. This is a future that millions more Americans will have to face in the coming years as the unemployment rate, which is really around 20% level, continues to accelerate. As we warned back in June, we are in the early stages of a new age of rage. We wrote an article about it, which will be characterized by riots, revolutions, and widespread backlash against the economic holocaust that has been unleashed by the global elite by design. Unfortunately, there will be many more Clay Dukes over the coming years. There will be more Americans who lose everything and decide that the best way is to simply lose it all together. Well done, Watson, on that article. But we're, again, I mean, it's clear. I've got more quotes here from him. He quotes Warren Buffett, who was a few weeks ago on This Week on ABC, sicking people on the rich, saying, tax tax people making $100,000 a year, saying they're the rich, because he's at the very top of the pyramid and uses government to transfer your wealth. We're going to come back with more of his quotes. By the way, Paul Watson is beefing up, adding more intel to his article, When Americans Lose Everything, They Start to Lose It. We've confirmed on his Facebook and other sites that his favorite websites were Media Matters and other mainstream news, but also We Are Change, which, of course, I helped spawn with Luke Radowski, that is all about be the change you want to see in the world, nonviolent. And on the front page, there's a giant image of Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King. And, Media Matters has been so wicked towards us and tried to claim that we're calling for violence that they'll probably just excise out We Are Change and won't even care and just ignore that they're listed as well. Just outrageous. Very, very outrageous. So clearly this was a freaked out, upset guy who was just at the end of his road. And I want to explain this psychological profile for you right now, because I discovered this doing research over the last 15 years. There was a 2020 special about it in 1991. Within 1 year, in 1989, of public schools, including Littleton, Colorado, implementing what is called death education and suicide prevention. They teach the kids how you die. You get in a simulated coffin. It's very bizarre. It's mind control. It's meant to make them depressed. And that's come out with the big drug makers. They actually put this in the name of making kids not commit suicide, but they know then that it introduces to the children the idea of committing suicide. And they've had just countless cases where particularly 11, 12, 13-year-old girls will hear about this, and they'll teach them, oh, did you know little girls hang themselves with shoelaces or belts? And they'll go into the public school bathroom and hang themselves on the coat hanger point that's on the inside of the stall. And you can search this and pull it up. School districts nationwide in the last 5, 6 years have pulled out the coat hanger areas inside the stalls because people were killing themselves, mainly little girls. Then once the little girls say they're depressed because it's been introduced to them that they should be depressed, that it's a big drama queen thing, then it's trendy for mommy and daddy to put them on Prozac or one of those other variants of serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Then, but it's trendy to put little Johnny on the amphetamine class drugs like, of course, Ritalin, Adderall, and others that cause the heart to swell, the brain to shrink, they retard growth, they cause brain damage, and parents just sadly go, well, the school said so, and boy, my daughter or son's a lot better now. Yeah, because they're burnt out. You were giving them Coke, you were giving them sweets, they were having sugar crashes, they had bad nutrition. And so you just burned their brain out. I'm sorry if you don't want to hear this. This is a fact. I've talked to medical doctors, nutritionists, you name it. They've done major studies where getting real nutrition and not drinking fluoridated water and not drinking processed, sugar drinks that are in vending machines all over the schools, or chocolate milk like we had in school. I remember always like an hour after lunch I get a headache and feel groggy because I was going and eating pizzas, 2 chocolate milks. I like salad, so I'd go ahead and eat a salad too, but boy, I love that school food. The mashed potatoes, the chicken fried steaks. I was in there getting double helpings. It's unhealthy. But again, I'm just trying to cover the whole spectrum of this. They introduced the idea of how to commit suicide. So now, since they introduced death education in the late 80s, and it's gone nationwide since then, you look at the charts for teenage suicide, it's just going straight up. And it's the same thing with the media advertising and hyping people going postal in the 80s. It was always military veterans, in almost every case, who had lost their governors to not want to shoot and kill people. Most of them had been in combat. They'd shot and killed people. That's how they deal with stress. They've been trained to be killers. I'm not saying they're bad people. And then they go in to work at the government building, mainly the post office. It's a stressful job. They got some boss bossing them around, makes them angry. They don't go commit suicide. Or they don't go sell their house and, or, you know, go moving with family or go, you know, travel the country or whatever, as they should. Just enjoy life, even if they become homeless. They go in and they shoot their boss, and they shoot a couple other co-workers. The media hypes it up. They play it up. They constantly put that idea out there. They have all these drills for mass shooters all over the place, introducing the idea. And then it begins to happen. So there's also that facet to all of this. But I wanted to get in to some more of the points that I made dealing with this. When Americans lose everything, they start to lose it. And I wrote some notes here. Number one, Mike Jones, the security guard, did his job. He's a hero. He went in there, fired one time, and shot Mr. Duke. Mr. Duke fell to the ground, realized what was happening, that he was about to go to prison for life, and killed himself, showing what a desperate person he was. We don't know if Duke, again, didn't want to kill people and so was aiming above them or beside them, which is common if you're not a trained killer who's been, you know, trained to instinctively kill and not think, like the police are with instinctive shooting and the military. We have the whole issue of the Second Amendment stopped this guy. And I've made the point, you come in my house, my business, my car, you know, if there was some nut shooting people next door, I'd go out there and deal with them. Because that's how we respond to this. You don't respond by disarming or trying to disarm people, because a nut's always going to be able to get a gun. A nut could walk up and hit a cop on the head with a baseball bat and take their gun away from him. Then the nanny state's answer is RFID in all the guns. And then they want to ban steak knives in England because people are stabbing people. No, it's the human mind that's the issue, not the car that can be used as a weapon or the airplane. It's the human mind. It's the individual. Again, I make the point that I am totally against what happened here. This is horrible. They will use this to clamp down on everybody. This is not the response we need. But if he's going to go after the government, why the school board? Well, they fired his wife. You know, they're laying people off for whatever reason. So that's why he went there. But if he's writing in his Facebook blogs and other places, my testament, some people, the government-sponsored media, which it is, will say I was an evil monster. No, I was just born poor in a country where the wealthy manipulate, use, abuse, and economically enslave 95% of the population. Rich Republicans, rich Democrats, same, rich. They take turns fleecing us our few dollars, pyramiding the wealth for themselves. The 95% of us in the U.S. of A. are the neo-slaves of the global South. Our masters, the wealthy, do as they like to us. And then he quotes Warren Buffett, who skillfully plays class warfare, the very, top of the pyramid, a guy worth hundreds of billions of dollars. He claims it's 40-something billion. He puts his billions into tax-free operations and tells you it's philanthropy, something the Rockefellers invented. Philanthropy is not charity. Totally different. And it continues. There's class warfare, all right, but it's my class, the rich class, that's making war, and we're winning. Warren Buffett. So he quotes Warren Buffett. He goes on, rise like lions after slumber, in unvanquishable number. Shake your change to earth like dew, which in sleep has fallen on you. Ye are many, they are few. So V for Vendetta, the image of people marching in mass past the corrupt military and taking down the bankers who were surveilling everyone and propagandizing, and the government's running the dominant media. It's the corruption that makes V for Vendetta so powerful, because it's telling a true story about oppression on so many levels. It is the bank stealing trillions and robbing the nation, and they haven't even gotten done. We're a year or two behind Ireland and Greece and others. It's just now getting ready to come here. Crime is exploding. I mean, I've got stacks of news here where it's just expanding. Police departments and sheriff's departments are laying off, in some cases, 60% of their deputies or police and announcing they're only going to respond. They're only going to respond to things like shootings, and that they're, the rest of the time, going to be out there engaged in revenue generation. Well, I discovered that 15 years ago when my car got stolen in Dallas. I discovered that. I had a girlfriend up there as I grew up in Dallas, and I had an old sweetheart I used to go visit. And then my car got stolen a second time, and she lived in a middle-class area. And it wasn't even that nice of a car. Stolen twice. Cops wouldn't come. Second time, I guess it happened like 16 years ago, then about a year later, 15 years ago. Maybe been 17 years ago and then 16 years ago. Yeah, I don't think I had a show yet. The point is, I'm up in Dallas visiting with her, and they steal my car twice. And the second time, the police said, well, we're not going to help you, and it might show up at an impound yard. And I said, okay, and hung up. Cops show up, arrogantly force their way into the apartment, looking around for, drugs or whatever, and tell me, you don't hang up on 9/11, okay? On 911. You don't hang up. So it's the old joke of like a third world country. Don't call the police for something because they'll end up just shaking you down. We're becoming a third world country. Take the Dallas police. They got caught, 5 years ago? Framing thousands of people. They just randomly pull over a nice car, throw a bag of cocaine in the back. On record. Then they got lazy because it was hard to get cocaine out of the evidence locker. They just throw chalk in the back of your car. They took sheetrock and busted it up, and they just take your car, go take your house. And, I was listening to the news yesterday in Austin, and a cop ran a red light, a stop sign, and hit a guy on a motorcycle. And the police were saying, well, motorcycles aren't safe. It's your fault you lost your leg. And the callers were calling in to 590, and Jeff Ward, the local host, was blown away going, you guys are defending the police? They're like, yes, it's, police can do no wrong. It's like a mental illness or something. When you start saying police can do no wrong, that allows the criminals to take it over. They've turned this government worship into a religion. So the government is completely out of control. And they're getting ready to start laying off most of the state and local government people. And they're going to be going postal. And then the government's going to go in. And, it turned out Richard Poplawski, who shot and killed 3 cops in Pittsburgh a year and a half ago, he was a Fox News fan, CNN, visited that, visited Glenn Beck, was really a Nazi, visited all the big Nazi sites and posted how much he loved them, posted on those sites and my sites how much he hated me. Within 2 hours of him being arrested after killing 3 cops at his house, his mommy's house. And the Marines trained him how to kill, by the way. I'm not blaming them. That's just, you want to point the finger. That's the instinctive killing. He thought it was a video game. Pop goes the weasel 3 times in a row. 3 men he killed in cold blood who responded to his mommy calling to throw him out because his pit bulls were defecating all over the floor. Spoiled brat. Within 2 hours of him in custody, headline, Alex Jones told him to do it. Alex Jones. And I made 5 newspapers retract, and then we got his quotes. He was a white supremacist who hated me. Doesn't matter to the Southern Poverty Law Center and ADL-controlled newspapers in that city. They got into those computers. They found he visited my websites, and it was my fault. And they're going to continue to do that. They're going to continue. They're not going to stop. Now, this guy recommended his favorite websites, Media Matters, along with We Are Change, and and V for Vendetta. It's not Media Matters' fault. It's not We Are Change's fault. It's not V for Vendetta's fault. It's the fault of this overall out-of-control culture, that he was domesticated, that he didn't have strong family, that he didn't have people to stick together with. But that wasn't his fault. That's a nature of this advanced civilization, that it's turned us basically into like domesticated animals that don't even know how to forage for ourselves. There's some other facets to all of this, too, that I want to hit on. But at the end of the day, the largest point I want to make is that we're sitting on top of a powder keg. And the system, 11 years ago, when they got rid of Glass-Steagall and allowed the trillions of derivatives to be created that are impossible to pay back. On record, the RAND Corporation, I read the reports on air at the time, they were even in the news, is how I learned about it, saying our society's going to change, troops are going to be on the street, our new economy is going to be surveillance, and we're going to have one-child policies, and America is going to implode, and because of economic degradation, we're going to have a totally authoritarian society. And now, the middle class, as crime explodes, as the shootings explode, as the problems expand, as people get desperate, they're going to offer Homeland Security and the threat fusion centers, and if you see something, say something that's designed to make you not trust your neighbors even more. We should all be coming together to help each other. We should all be coming together to also politically get together, and instead of going and shooting a cop down the street or shooting somebody at a school board meeting, no, we should be getting together with grand juries and taking back our legislatures and kicking out the electronic voting machines and taking Congress back. Congress now has the lowest approval rating in its history. We should be doing that. We should be taking our system back and pointing out it's the mega central banks that have created a debt black hole and fostered and financed carbon tax moves to fund themselves and shut down the real economy, who have financed all the federalization moves worldwide so they can centralize control. This is the system that we're facing and dealing with. And it's us or them. It's in the IMF World Bank documents that got leaked in 2002. It's in the last chapter in my out-of-print book. It's online at prisonplanet.tv. And what does it say in there? Joseph Stiglitz left the World Bank. Suddenly these documents get released. I interviewed Greg Palast. We covered the documents the BBC got, and they said, in Argentina, in other nations, we implode the economy, we get the countries into derivative debt, we blow it out, then people start rioting, that further destroys confidence, then we bring in the military. Then we have a basic dictatorship. And the middle class will, quote, side with the elite, because that's how they set it up. And then the middle class themselves are destroyed. This is why Latin America's poor. This is why Africa's poor. This is why Eastern Europe is poor. Because they succumb to this. And now it's happening to us. And we're going into this headlong right now. And the system in the Ministry of Defense report 3 years ago in England, the government Pentagon reports the last 2 years, they go like, oh, jeepers, there's going to be societal collapse. We better set up a martial law control system to counter it. But they openly at the top work for the very bankers and the social engineers who played all this out. And I've been telling you for over a decade exactly what was coming, and now we're going into it headlong, but knowing we can reverse it. Okay, you know, about a month ago, Lindsey Williams revealed who Mr. X was, former head of operations for Atlantic Richfield. He has, unfortunately, died of the cancer. And he's going to be joining us coming up in about 35 minutes. I don't want to get too much into this, but we have a white hat hacker who goes by Winston Smith of federaljack.com. He's associated with that great We Are Change type spinoff down in Florida, also expanding across the country. They do great work. And he's an amazing hacker. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I mean, he has sat there in real time and shut down major websites right in front of me. Like, watch, I'll turn this major website off for 2 minutes now. Just turn it off. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. I probably shouldn't even. Look, the issue here is, that he concurs with my analysis of what's going on with Anonymous and the attacks on WikiLeaks, and that it is a government infiltration operation, that they are on the major hacking sites trying to recruit people to attack news outlets, credit card companies, as the pretext to bring in the Homeland Security takeover of the internet, which they're openly announcing. And this just came in. When I was in England 5 years ago, I was there 3 days before they banned protesting within several miles of Parliament. And the cops came over and said, well, it's going to be banned later in the week. They've passed the law, but it isn't in effect yet. But go ahead and turn your bullhorn off and get out of here. We don't care if it isn't the law. We're going to arrest you. And that's in Terror Storm. But police mole banning all UK protest. Oh, see, remember it came out a few years ago that the entire parliament is spied on by MI5 and MI6? The parliament is supposedly the government. But you've got the intelligence agencies, you've got the security services. I mean, England is becoming like Venezuela. They announced today that Hugo Chavez is going to rule by decree. What does Obama do? They pass health care, and then he rules by decree and says these 500-plus major businesses are exempt, but everybody else has got to pay it? If that goes on long, they'll only be government-approved corporations. That's how royalty always operated. You had to have the seal as an approved operation to have a shipping company or to brew beer or to grow wheat. This is a planned economy. This is what they admit they're building. And look at this article. This is out of Press TV. Police mole banning all UK protests. The British police chief says he's weighing up an option to ask the Home Secretary to enforce a ban on any future protest gatherings altogether across the UK. See, as I said 5 years ago, it's the Parliament area today, all of England tomorrow, the world next week. Tens of thousands of student protesters from universities, colleges, and schools have been marching across England. What comes next? You're going to go to a relocation camp if you protest? Oh, yeah. And what did Kennedy say? Those that make peaceful protesting impossible make violent revolution inevitable. Tens of thousands of students and protests from university, colleges, and schools have been marching across England in protest against the huge hikes in tuition fees, together with the scrapping of educational maintenance allowance and proposed cuts in college funding. Police have arrested 180. And it goes on. The motion was voted on and approved last Thursday. And it goes on. Metropolitan Police Commissioner said banning students from marching was a power he had not ruled out using. We're going to read you his quote. This is in mainstream British newspapers as well. We've got an amazing white hat hacker, goes by Winston Smith from federaljack.com. He just likes Federal Jack. So that's his handle. His handle today. But I don't want to imply he did something wrong. We authorized him to run attacks against our sites to show us all the problems and vulnerabilities. And it's just amazing. And I know some people that know him. And he's really a security consultant. But you could call him a hacker, a white hat hacker. And he concurs with my analysis. And the government is out there openly recruiting on the hacker sites to try to attack patriot groups and organizations, and obviously yours truly. And they've, the issue is that this is an attack against free speech. And the whole WikiLeaks thing is very complex, but I'm going to break it down coming up in the next segment. And then Lindsey Williams can now give you the full name. It's been hidden in plain view. We already gave it out a month ago with him. Mr. X, unfortunately, has died. And now Williams can tell you everything, because some of it he wasn't authorized to say until the former head of operations for Atlantic Richfield died. He has another individual, which are both in his book from 20-something years ago. This is all hidden in plain view, who is now giving him even more intel, who was the actual CEO of one of the big three. Here's another police state article. 1 million approved for ID scanners in child care facilities. Devices intended to cut down on fraud in Wisconsin. Shares see everywhere. Want a suntan? Want to buy groceries? Want to get some beer? Got a thumbprint. It's just going in everywhere. The total cashless society is going into place right now. And I was just reading this earlier, and it integrates in with these announcements of the Obama kill switch, the federal government kill switch. People love to call Obama this, Obama that. When Obama's gone and Sarah Palin's in there or Rick Perry, Republicans are going to love the kill switch. The mainline Republicans. It's just like they're like, execute Julian Assange. And they're like, we don't understand. You say it's George Soros connected, but then you say don't kill Assange. They got a grand jury in Virginia that's getting ready to indict him. That's mainstream news for high treason. He's not an American citizen. He's a journalist. You can't indict him. Can the communist Chinese indict the Pope for treason and ship him to Beijing to be beheaded? Can they indict Colonel Sanders? Can they indict Jaron Neihart out there? Or Phil? Can they indict Magic Johnson? Can they indict, who's a famous golfer? Tiger Woods. Can they just, we indict you, now extradite? This is global government, which the UN's announced. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, years ago in USA Today, said, oh, yeah, we're going to have global government where foreign governments extradite you for treason. So now, will Libya extradite me? Because I think Muammar Gaddafi's thuggish. If I criticize Hugo Chavez, will I be extradited? This is all happening. This is all going on right now. And you've got to decide, is the truth treason? But here's a quote by Sir Paul Stevenson. Oh, Sir Paul, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner. It's one of the tactics we will look at and something we will keep under review. And if we think it's the right thing to do, we will do it, said Sir Paul Stevenson. Do you know what it is when the government says no protesting, period? First they put us in free speech zones, and that's a form of martial law. But now the real fangs are being extended. The gloves are coming off. Oh, yeah, we're now looking at just banning protest, period, nationwide. In fact, get me Watson or Steve Watson on the air. They're over in England. They need to write this. It needs to be martial law being considered in the UK. That's what this is. That's martial law. Oh, you don't like us raping you? Well, we'll just declare martial law. See, all of it's starting to unfold right now. And we've got Lindsey Williams joining us, coming up here in about 23 minutes from now. His former oil company executive source has died. He's already revealed his full name here on air, but now he can give you the full data dump that he was authorized to give you after Mr. X died, and that's now happened. So we'll give you again, for those that don't know it, his full name and exactly what Lindsey Williams is able to tell us now, because he worked for many years with the head of operations for Atlantic Richfield, and he's now able to talk about that and what this insider said the globalists were planning. Now it's very evident they're accelerating global collapse to destroy all the major economies and currencies and set up their new SDR based on carbon taxes and global VAT. They are slashing pension funds, military, medical treatment. They are going after the most outrageous things first, because if they can take veterans' health care, they can do anything. Europe, the United States, taxing pension funds, taking pension funds. It's all happening. They're openly talking about shutting down free speech on the web, tracking everyone here in the United States. Australia has announced it. Headline, Australia to implement Chinese-style net censorship. Again, they're just throwing it in your face, going all the way now. And it's being reported all over UK news very dryly. They have the UK Metropolitan Police Commissioner being quoted as saying police mulling, banning all UK protest. And Watson's getting an article out with a proper headline. When you hear about Indonesia going under martial law, or Nigeria, or Venezuela, it's always protest or banned. And then there's curfews. And you notice in towns all over the U.S., they now have curfews even in the daytime. In Arkansas and weird places that you wouldn't expect it. In fact, people don't believe it. Just type Arkansas town has daytime curfew. Clover, Port, Kentucky, daytime, nighttime curfews off and on in the past. They're just training you to line up, have the government put their hands down your pants. They've now announced, first it was 800 Walmarts, now 9,000 retail stores to have giant telescreens. See, a week ago, it's 800. A week later, it's 9,000. A month later, it's going to be 100,000. Every license plate in California, they're announcing is going to have a computer screen as a license plate, giving you messages and orders and tracking you. I mean, they are rolling out a hellish takeover. The same retina scanning, thumbprinting they do to people in Fallujah or Afghanistan or Iraq, it's coming here. Total control grid. They got the Threat Fusion Center, CIA run here in Austin. I knew they had it in 6-7 years ago. License plate reading, face scanning. They've now announced on the news. They've got microphones. The feds have got microphones mounted on poles everywhere that at hundreds of yards away shoot a laser that you can't even see at your window. They get full acoustic audio inside your house with that laser cuplink. I mean, it is just a hell grid. And they've built this giant overarching system. They've got all their weapons and control and spies aimed, and now they're rolling out, yeah, censorship's good. Banning protests is good. Free speech zones. Yeah, your neighbors need to spy on you. Don't trust other shoppers. Only trust the government. Now, for the next 20 minutes or so, we are joined by Winston Smith, and he works some with federaljack.com. I'd call it kind of a spin-off, but just as effective and great as We Are Change. Do a lot of great, confronting Al Gore, George W. Bush, other globalists, just amazing patriots, exposing the global warming fraud, you name it. And he joins us because he concurs with my analysis, and he's seeing it now in the hacker community. And this guy's good, folks. He's very good. He's really a security consultant, a.k.a. white hat hacker. And so, Winston Smith, it's good to have you here. Tell folks your intel on what they're planning and how they're using all of this hacking to try to pass their internet kill switch.
Well, thanks for having me on. Well, basically, the group Anonymous itself, it's not a government operation. It's not run by the government. It's just basically citizens on the internet. There's not really controlled or run by anyone, but because it's so decentralized like that, anyone can jump on and make suggestions and basically fan the flames in whatever direction they want. So there are definitely operatives within the anonymous community, and they're definitely on there fanning the flames to promote infrastructure attacks and denial of service attacks on financial systems and other systems that end up affecting average people that the powers that be, they're not really too concerned about. They'll lose service for a bit, but then they'll come right back on once everyone gets tired. And
this is the false flag on the web that I've been predicting.
Yeah, yes. The reason they're doing that is they want to implement the government IDS sensors in front of things that they deem critical infrastructure. Google's already deployed an Einstein surveillance system, and the Einstein IDS was developed by the NSA, and they're really pushing that to have that put in front of private business networks that are deemed critical infrastructure. So,
and that's the whole Homeland Security takeover with InfraGard, clergy response. Basically, everything is critical infrastructure. That's in the Homeland Security Cybersecurity Act, where any ISP that has over 100 customers has to be government approved and have government snoop hubs in it. So it is literally Internet 2 going out and making companies pay for Internet 2 to be put in. That's a parallel web to start absorbing the old Internet and tracking everyone. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, and they're selling it that it's going to protect you from hackers, that the sensors will be able to look for malicious traffic and look for attacks and be able to block them at the source and report it. But in reality, it's going to be able to do much more than that. It's going to be able to have a deep packet inspection where it's going to be able to pretty much examine all the contents of what's coming over the wire. And they're going to be looking for dissident communications because that's the nature of government. That's what they do. They're not really interested in protecting anything.
Absolutely, that's admitted. I saw 2 years ago, Kurt Nimmo wrote an article with bizarre statements by Cyber Command that's already fully operating. They're just trying to get legislative authority now to do it in the open. And they said that they were already attacking themselves and, quote, attacking enemies of their agenda, which Cass Sunstein and others admit is people like yours truly, or anyone who disagrees with man-made global warming. Where do you see this going? And do you agree with my analysis that Assange is a patsy? They're trying to use him to make this Cass Sunstein-connected, George Soros-connected movement look legitimate, and that they're basically persecuting him to give an overall cover story to their larger takeover.
From what I know about Assange, he seems legit, and it seems that because they're going after him so hard in so many different ways, I do believe he's a legitimate researcher. He's he's from the old school hacker ethos from back in the 90s and late 80s from Australia. He's definitely, he seems to have the right hacker ethos, and the way they're attacking him just kind of lends credibility to what he's doing. And the way that mainstream media is seizing on a lot of the document dumps and just reporting on stuff that's promoting their agenda, such as invading Iran and stuff like that. I think that since there's 250,000 cables, they're just digging through and cherry picking what's going to benefit them in order to do damage control. But from what I can tell, Assange does seem to be legit.
You know, there's a lot of questions I could raise here or bring up to you, but clearly the good news is when you're looking at all the big hacker sites and forums, to paraphrase what you said, or correct me if I'm wrong, 99% of the time nobody is biting on joining with these provocateurs to go after alternative media, patriot groups, but also key infrastructure and individuals to create a pushback and a really corporate and grassroots support for do something about these hackers, you know, put a muzzle on the internet.
Right. The attacks on anything beyond really attacks on the financial sector aren't really gaining much steam. They just kind of seem to be puttering out, because the way it works is a post will be made or suggestion will be made, and if the group of people who are monitoring at the time and are participating at the time don't get behind it, the idea just flutters out. So you'll see destructive things being suggested every now and then, but they'll thankfully they're so far just petering out. And when they do take place, like attacks on the financial industry, they're arresting kids and low hanging fruit. The anonymous groups, they're using something called the low orbit ion cannon, the LOIC, and it's basically an opt-in botnet where you just run it from your computer and it'll start opening connections on a website, and they'll get a few thousand people to do this, and it'll take the website down. The program by default doesn't offer any proxying support, so it traces directly back to your computer. And they're arresting 16 and 17-year-old kids. I think they just arrested a 19-year-old kid who was running the software, pinning them.
Yeah, we've seen operatives. We've seen operatives openly on YouTube recruiting people to run these attacks on InfoWars and Prison Planet, and we've tracked it back and are pretty sure that it's Homeland Security doing it, posing as hackers, and it's just ongoing. So that's important for people to know that they're just busting a few kids and not going after, the really malicious stuff, which in every case we've looked at is a staged event.
And there's some other campaigns that different anonymous groups are doing, and they actually seem to be they're actually productive. They're encouraging people to read the WikiLeaks documents and actually. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the music going? I can't hear that.
Yeah, stay there, because exactly, that's the big news coming up. You say there's about to be some real WikiLeaking going on, and instead of just cherry-picking, really getting into those documents and getting stuff out there like DynCorp running little kids. We'll be right back. Winston Smith, White Hat Hacker, is our guest, and I'm going to keep him about 5 minutes in the next segment, then get Lindsey Williams on. You've got a lot to say. You say the real people involved with Anonymous are doing some really exciting things, and that there's a lot more to come. You've got the floor.
Movement from some factions of Anonymous that are encouraging people to actually read the WikiLeaks documents and look for stuff that's not being discussed in any media. Like with the latest thing with the DynCorp sex scandal where they're selling boys to Afghan police forces. That came out in a Houston Chronicle blog. So basically, they're encouraging people to go start combing through the cables. There's 250,000 of them. There's going to be plenty that mainstream media is not touching. And then put up a YouTube video, put up a free blog page, write 1 or 2 paragraphs about it, and then start spamming it around. And then that way the information will go viral, because the New World Order doesn't really fear 16-year-olds doing denial of service attacks, but they do fear the information from those cable leaks getting out. And I also want to put out a call for programmers to, I guess, contact either federaljack.com or infowars.com directly. And we basically we need to put together an opt-in botnet that's similar to the LOIC, but that is not that one that's not destructive. So instead of doing denial of service attacks, it can do things like do Google searches or upvote YouTube videos and upvote dig articles, and in that way, when important information comes out, everyone can dedicate their resources to making the information as viral as possible. And with the success of the Google bomb campaigns that have been going on right now, if it could be automated with some kind of client software, I think that would have a real big impact. And so basically, we need to find programmers who can help do that.
Well, expanding on that, the globalists are masters of creating the type of fake revolution they want, because they can look at a trend societally of what they're doing and know that people are going to resist it. So ahead of time, they will go out and frame the debate. So they're always promoting hacking that's just denial of service or things that are destructive to demonize people being activists with technology, so that being an activist with technology is seen as inherently dirty. You go back to the 1940s and 50s with the British, and this has been declassified, but they use a similar model today in Kenya. And the government wanted to crack down and take over society, and so they went and financed rebel groups and then used those groups as the foggy, scary enemy to take over and steal people's property and enslave people. And it's the same thing. They're there setting up Assange, burning him. He's being used to then get everybody angry and then get folks to go out and vandalize the web as a pretext to come control it. And I know I've already said that several times, but that's a different way of saying it. This is really important. And it's just like the feds got caught in the early 90s going out and creating militia groups, making them violent, to demonize real militia groups. This is how they do it. Any comments on that?
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing. And coming up soon is a United Nations meeting on internet security around the world. So it's real convenient that that's being scheduled right after all of this. And
notice right now, Winston, they are trying to pass the cybersecurity. They've got these new bills where you could be given life in prison or executed if you put anything classified out. The government's classifying everything now. This is how you disappear to prison in the new Nazi Germany, is they say national security. It was the same thing in Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia. Now in England, they're saying we may ban all protest. That's martial law. I mean, notice right as the economic implosion happens, they're announcing all of this just as we warned people, because we've read the Rand Corporation documents. We know what their next move is.
And talking on that bill that's in Congress, not only is they're making it illegal to publish any classified information, basically they want to make it illegal to revealing the source documents of anything that they deem as national security, and they're naming an informant, even if that informant's name is publicly known, has been reported in the media. If you utter that person's name, you can be charged with a felony, and it's crazy.
And folks, I've read sections of the bill. This is really happening, and they had all this stuff already written. They've already proposed it before and failed, and this is the new tyranny. Oh, you don't go to a camp because you're Jewish or because you're a Seventh-day Adventist. You go to a camp because you released the MIAC or Homeland Security report. You can see where this is going. And as usual, they've got mindless, fake conservatives leading the charge to execute Julian Assange. What a barrel of idiots. I got a few final questions for you. Our white hat hacker security expert, Winston Smith, joins us. We'll be right back. I was talking to a real estate broker who's a friend of mine last night, and she's a listener of the show, but I guess it never clicked. She was watching nightly news, and they were announcing that your credit report, everything you're doing in business, your online activity is all being now sent to the government starting next year. That's already been the case for a long time. But in live time, they announced 3 weeks ago in Wired Magazine, the government admits, we're watching all your credit card purchases, your loyalty cards. They're just getting rid of any denial. They're just coming right out and saying there's no pretense of privacy. And these are felonies they're committing. I mean, just 5 years ago, people would go to jail for this in government. Now they just say, look, we're doing it. And then we get their internal documents, and it's all about us and stealing from us. Nothing to do with the men in turbans, who, by the way, on record have been caught working for them, or who are provocateured by them over and over again. Lindsey Williams is coming up here in a few minutes, but I wanted our white hat hacker, again, we'll just call him Winston Smith from federaljack.com. Winston, any other tidbits you want to add? And then some of the guys in there, Matt Ryan and others, they wanted to talk about the fact that, Microsoft routinely goes to hacker conferences and gives the source code out to new Windows versions and says, try to break it if you can. And that the government has, and Google and others, which is basically the government, really tries to recruit all the hackers they can to then work for them, I guess, on the dark side. What percentage of hackers out there are awake now to this whole New World Order system? Your comments on the general points I just made.
The government and military industrial complex contractors are definitely at hacker conferences recruiting. You can find at any one of these major conferences, you can find Booz Allen Hamilton, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon. They're all out there looking for people. NSA gives away scholarships at another one I know of. A lot of hackers are aware of what's going on, but they're still kind of getting the jobs doing this stuff because they're very lucrative paying jobs, and so they're whether or not they're keeping their original ethics when they're taking these jobs, I don't know, but a lot of hackers are aware of what's going on, but they're also getting jobs within the system so that they can basically live, and that might be a good thing. That might be a bad thing. It's pretty much from the people I talk to when I'm out there. A lot of people know what's going on and they're in agreement. But they'll still work at they'll still work for the government or for a defense contractor.
Well, it's clearly that old double-edged sword of it's good because as long as the hackers are into liberty and freedom, it's great to have them inside the system. The problem is that system is so corrupt and murderous that many times they go ahead and just set people up, even if you haven't betrayed the system, just because they want to have a conviction on you. So it's very destructive, and overall we need people that have knowledge of all these systems to be out there exposing the globalist as much as they can. But it is creepy to have you and many others confirm to us and send us the data that the government is out there trying to move against what we're doing, the alternative media. And then the great thing for the globalist is they can engage in these activities and then blame it on the rest of the hacker community.
And a lot of the hackers that they're using for that are criminal informants. Like with the TJX breach, the main hacker that was behind that was a Secret Service informant getting paid $80,000 a year, and at the same time he was the same guy who's doing all these big credit card breaches, stealing millions of credit card numbers, and then they use that as an excuse to start clamping down on basically internet freedoms and monitoring financial transactions, looking for fraud because your credit card was probably compromised by this guy, but he was working for the Secret Service at the same time, getting paid $80,000 a year, and then that was in Wired magazine.
So once you work for the government, it's also just a license to engage in criminal activity.
That seems to be the trend. They burned him pretty bad though for when they caught him. He got sentenced to 25 years for credit card theft, which is unheard of. It's, if you kill someone, you can get 10 years, but if you steal their credit card, you get 25.
Well, that could bring down the entire system, all of this fraud that's going on. And so many times it's come out that the big banks are actually releasing this themselves and then using it as a pretext to try to bring in even more control because they can then put regulations in that are so strong, only mega banks will be able to comply with all of it. Winston Smith, good talking to you, and appreciate all of your help, and continue the great work there at Federal Jack and We Are Change, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Now, for the rest of this hour and much of the next, but I do have some other economic news, world news, police state news I've got to get to. And we probably should just have open phones today talking about the shooting. It's so dramatic to have the footage of it, that deranged person there in Florida I mean, just so many acts of heroism by the lady hitting him with the bag in the back of the head, with the purse, and one of the school board people saying, well, if I'm the bad guy, go ahead and kill me. Just let everybody else go. It's just all wild. And the roller coaster is just getting going. I mean, society is going to get crazier and crazier from here on out. We're going to look back on 2010 and see it as tame, good old days. But the fact is, we're going into this. The question is, will we come out on the other side totally enslaved, or will we come out on the other side rediscovering liberty and freedom and rediscovering independence and rediscovering real community and discovering real values of liberty and freedom? Because liberty is the engine of wealth. But with liberty comes wealth, then comes decadence, then comes enslavement, because people stop standing up for freedom. We're going to go to Lindsey Williams with a giant data dump of information. Unfortunately, Mr. X, who we can now reveal his name, he revealed it a month ago here on air, but now the poor fellow has died of cancer, former Atlantic Richfield head of operations. And a lot of it he couldn't talk about with his inside information until this gentleman had passed. Now he can. All right, folks, I want to shift gears. He'll be with us until the last 15 minutes of the next hour. We appreciate him joining us, but I got a news blitz coming up then. Plus this incredible news. They're announcing they may have full-bore martial law in England. That's what this announcement means, saying no protest nationwide. Watson's getting an article out on that right now at prisonplanet.com. But things are just getting crazier and crazier by the minute. But going to Lindsey Williams, he was a pastor and was in the board meetings as their official chaplain for many years on the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. It's got more oil than Saudi Arabia. He was there and watched them shut it off and not let them ship it out. He was privy to all of that. And decades after he wrote his book, that's all mainstream knowledge now. And again, people are like, this stuff's wild what Williams is saying. Well, I happen to know that everything he talked about 25 years ago came true because it was already real. And he predicted that gas would go from $60 a barrel to $150 in 6 months. It happened. He's predicted so much here because of his sources. He's got 2 former oil company executives. One of them has just died and completely spilt his guts before he died. Mr. X, we gave his name out a month ago when Williams was here. But Williams, just briefly recapping, sir, and I appreciate you joining us and coming on a little bit late. I had to finish up with that WikiLeaks hacker insider information. But just recap Mr. X's name, what the family said, when he passed, and then the stuff that you couldn't talk about until he had died.
Well, Alex, thank you for allowing me to be on your show today, because that's correct. The Mr. X of my book, Energy Non-Crisis, there were actually 2 of them. One of them just passed away days ago. His name is Ken Fromm. Now, if any of you would like to do what Alex has done, you can go and find it for yourself. Find out his position, find out his place, realize that he positively was one of the elitist of the world. And before this man passed away, he told me everything. And you're going to hear some things today for the very first time, because out of respect for the family, until after the funeral, I did not want to say certain things. Now, Alex, I know on the last show I did with you back, probably a month ago, you were pushing real hard to get me to say what might have been told me, but out of respect for the family, I felt that I had to hold back certain things until after he died. Now, he is dead. Therefore, I'm going to give you today many of the things that he told me. Now, Alex, I feel so fortunate, though, because you've heard me say many times that by the providence of God, all of these things have happened. The fact that I was the chaplain on the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline, literally lived with the elite of the world for 3 years, had the opportunity to sit across the dinner table from them, live in the same dorms with the people that you hear about in the World Bank, the IMF, the top oil company officials of the world. I take no credit for any of that. All of that is by the providence of God. And something else has just happened that I think has got to be the providence of God. After Ken Fromm died, the second Mr. X in my book, Energy Non-Crisis, who has kept in touch with me on a very regular basis for the past 35 years, he said on the phone one day, He said, Chaplain Williams, I know now that Ken has been giving you a lot of information and has passed away. He said, would you like for me to continue to fill his shoes and give you the information? I did not ask for that. He volunteered it. And again, Alex, I think it is by the providence of God, so that hopefully I will be able to continue to warn the world of things that these elitists have planned on an ongoing basis.
Now, why?
Now, you know who this second person is.
Sure, even more high level than Mr. Fromm, but we won't give out that name. But going back here, Fromm began to repent. Correct me if I'm wrong. What is the position of this other guy? I mean, is he not liking what's happening, or is he just enjoying telling us about our fate?
Well, this gentleman wants the information to get out. He's retired. He's 69 years of age. He's the one that was cured of cancer. He has a very close relationship with me, and as a result, he would like to see everything known. In fact, he gave me just the other day. This is so startling. Would you like to know exactly what's going to happen so that you can spare your assets? Now, this is just days ago. It was said to me, watch the European Union. They said the European Union, and folks, this is so important. I mean, you can save your household by knowing just this one simple warning that has been given to me, and he gave it to me as a sign that I could spare my household. He said to me, the European Union, they're going to have a major problem. And he said the euro will collapse at some point. Now, folks, here is the warning. Please, Alex, I feel so honored to be on your show today so that I can, folks, you've got to make preparations for their timetable. Okay, here it is. He said the European Union is going to have a major problem.
Hold on, stay there. Let's
will collapse. He said,
Lindsey, we got a break. Stay there, come back, get into what this other executive told you, and then the stuff that you couldn't talk about until Mr. Fromm had passed away. We'll be right back with Pastor Lindsey Williams. I'm Alex Jones. Stay with us. You know, when Lindsey Williams says he feels honored to be here, I feel honored to be here. I mean, I can't believe how crazy it's all getting. Matt Ryan was telling me that about once a year he buys Sudafed for allergies. We've got the cedar blowing in right now. It pollinates in the winter. And first, all over the country, they want you to just sign. And at first, it's not a law. Oh, just sign here. It's store policy to get Sudafed. We're going back to Lindsey here in a moment. This is so important. I want to get his take as a pastor on this. And then now it's, let's swipe your card. And then you want tobacco. You want wine. Now it's, oh, you want spray paint. Oh, now you want glue. Now you want anything. That's what they admit they're moving to. Even if you have cash, you will swipe the card to buy and sell. This is total control. Total control. We'll get to that later with Lindsey Williams. Lindsey, recapping the other oil company former CEO. The other guy was of another company, the head of operations, Mr. X, Mr. Fromm, was talking about euro collapse. Now, that's been in the news lately, but you're saying as an insider, he's been told by his friends, by his associates, by his fellow members of, I guess, the synagogue of the New World Order, or the Church of the New World Order, or the Mosque of the New World Order, or the, whatever you want to call it, the meeting place of the New World Order, that they're going to implode it?
The name of the game is control. Alex, you'll remember back about 2.5 years ago on your program, I said that Mr. Fromm had called me. At the time, I couldn't give his name. I said, he just called me today and said that the price of crude oil is going from $147 a barrel to $50 a barrel. At the time, you were paying $4 a gallon at the gas pump, but 2.5 years ago. Now, within 2 months, exactly like this man had told me, it happened. And folks, I am pleading with you today. I am going to give you some signs that Mr. Fromm and others have given to me. And if you want to spare your household some heartaches, you can do it. But you've got to make certain preparations and do certain things as far as your mindset is concerned, and do it right now. Now, I was told by Mr. Fromm before he died that certain things were going to happen again with oil. You remember I told you that they were going to keep the price of crude oil about $70 a barrel for for a period of time, at least a year. Well, they kept it that way for 2.5 years. And then on the previous show that I did with Alex, I said, Alex, the price now is going to change. It's going up. Well, it's going up to $90 a barrel. And it's going to continue to go. I'll tell you where it's going.
Yeah, you said in the next 6 to 8 months it would rise massively, and as soon as you were on, it began rising. Go ahead.
Well, that's what they told me. I mean, I had no way of knowing this, just like I had no way of knowing that it was going to go down to $1.50 a gallon at the gas pump back 2.5 years ago. I had no way of knowing it was going to go back up to $150 to $200 a barrel. Now, right here in Phoenix, Arizona, today, we are over $3 a gallon for regular, the cheap stuff. In California, it's $4 a gallon right now. You haven't seen anything yet. I have been told it is going to $150 a barrel to $200 a barrel, depending on how far they can push the American people. It is going to drastically impact our economy. It is already $3 a gallon here in Phoenix, Arizona. You are going to see $4 to $5 a gallon at the gas pump in the very near future. 6 to 9 months, they'll take it as high as they can, and they want it to go to $200 a barrel. Now, let me get back to what Alex just mentioned, the euro. Folks, this is so important. I mean, yes, you're right. This has been on the media, but the elite knew this before the media ever knew it, because all the media is doing is voicing what the elite want them to say. The European Union is going to have a major problem. The euro will see a collapse first before the American dollar. Whenever you see the euro collapse, you have 2 to 3 weeks. That's all you've got. You must take certain action.
Stay there. Back in 60. Stay there. Ladies and gentlemen, Lindsey Williams has got the sources from his years working with the CEOs and directors of several major oil companies as their official chaplain in their board meetings. He was their buddy. They took fishing. He was the guy that hung out with them, and he kept these contacts through the years, and it's always been a great boon to our intelligence to see what's happening. Now, if you just joined us, his source dropped major bombshells, both the former CEO of a company and then the other former director of another company who just died, Mr. Fromm. Everything they talk about dealing with energy prices has been 100% on. And Lindsey, this is a short segment, but please get into it for people right now without the break interrupting you. Specifically what he said about the euro is going down. Did he give time frames? And he said 2 to 3 weeks to, quote, do what once it goes down?
I am trying my best to spare you heartaches by giving you these things that they've given to me. And people oftentimes ask me, why do the elite tell you these things? Well, there's only 2 of them. There's none others that have been willing to confide in me. And I think the reason they're doing it is because years ago I was willing to give 3 years of my life to be their chaplain. And that's the reason they're telling me some very startling things. Now, you have never heard me say this before. I actually recorded the words of some of the elite and their spokespeople. I actually recorded them when we were together. I actually recorded them. Now, I know people have had trouble believing some of the things I've said over the years, but then what the elite have told me has taken place that way every single time. So if you have any doubts whatsoever about believing Lindsey Williams, don't believe me. I'm just, by the providence of God, the spokesperson that is allowed to give this information out. Then you will be able to hear the voices of them themselves.
Incredible. So you're breaking this here?
First time this has ever been told, Alex. I have never said this on any radio show anywhere in the world. I said to your producer when he called me 2 or 3 days ago, I said, I want to give this for the first time on the Alex Jones show because I know you've got so much coverage. I must get this information out.
So is this stuff you recorded back in the 70s and 80s, or is this new stuff?
Well, some of it is new, some of it is back then, some of it goes back 2 years ago, some of it is up to right now, and then also what they're going to do, I'm actually going to give you will hear their words as to what they're going to do, and you'll hear the words of their spokesperson telling what they're going to do, and I was told to listen to these things because in them I would find the buzzwords. Now, keep in mind, one of the first things that I learned when I lived with the elite of the world was to listen to their buzzwords. And I wrote 3 books about this. And I said, they have a code of ethics. And in their code of ethics, and they don't have the same code of ethics you and I have. They don't have the Bible. They don't believe the Word of God. They don't trust Jesus Christ as their Savior. But they have a code of ethics, and their code of ethics says that they must tell you what they're going to do before they do it. And I have been told to listen to certain buzzwords that they were giving. And I know we're coming up on a break here. So on the next break,
so what you're saying,
actually give you some of their buzzwords.
Okay, but I want to go back and recap where the oil prices are going, the other intel that Mr. Fromm gave you that you were allowed to give out after he passed, and then I want to get into the specifics of, you're saying 2 to 3 weeks they told you when the euro goes down. I want to talk about when it's going down. I want to talk about what they mean by you got 2 to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks till total collapse, bank shutdown. I mean, let's get specifics on this long segment coming up. Plenty of time, Lindsey. And then, did you record these guys? Do you have their authorization? Or did they tell you, go out and find this press release? That's where it's been admitted in plain view. I know that's one of their favorite little tricks. It's like one of their rules. This is all breaking. I just knew that Mr. Fromm was about to die of cancer, and then we called, and he has died. They have had the funeral. So Lindsey's giving it all to us right now. Very powerful. Lindsey Williams, the biggest data dump we've ever gotten from him, and just thank God for him. Pastor Williams, again, 20-plus years ago, wrote a book, The Energy Non-Crisis, laying out how there were more oil reserves that have been discovered in Alaska, much of it sweet crude, than in all of Saudi Arabia, but we're not allowed to have it. They could have dozens of pipelines coming down. Our gas would be incredibly cheap, but it's a rigged system. And that has now all come out mainstream news, making, really his original stuff passé. But people couldn't believe it 25 years ago. Now, Mr. Fromm, I knew that Dr. Monteith loves to dig around, and he figured out who he was, called him. He figured out who the other guy was. I'd figured it out. It was all hidden in plain view. And so I knew Williams was telling the truth. And people hear it, and they're like, this can't be true that, that the elite are actually talking to each other and know what's coming, know what's going to happen. Folks, I don't know any billionaires. I've met a few. And a billionaire I ran into through another person I know. And then afterwards, after I'd met with her, I looked her up online and found that I was just blown away. This is one of the richest women in the United States. She doesn't live here now. And she said, this was about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And she said, in 3 years, so I guess she's a little behind on the time, there won't be a United States. And I said, what does that mean? She just said, I'm getting out of here. And she said, you'll see. Then I'm out in the hill country at an event with some people that my kids are friends with, and there's John Wayne's, one of his kids living out there, and they're like, and I went and looked him up later, and it is one of John Wayne's kids. I'm leaving the country, because of all these new rules. I mean, they all know, folks. They all know what's going on. Every time I run into some elitist or wealthy person, they're like either laughing at everybody or like abandoned ship because they have, well, let's go to Lindsey Williams. Lindsey, in the interest of time, because, we're running out here and there's so much to tell. Let's go through it piece by piece. Your other Mr. X, not Ken Fromm, but the other Mr. X, who was even more high level than him, he told you specifically what about the euro collapse. Did he give you time frames? And then you got cut off by the break. You said you'll only have 2 or 3 weeks to get out. What does that mean? Quantify that question.
Okay. Again, let me say that only by the providence of God could I have never known any of these things. Don't give Lindsey Williams credit for this. All right. He said to me the other day, he said, Lindsey, I want to show you how to listen to some buzzwords. And I'm going to give them to you right now. Alex wants me to give them quick. I'll try my best to do it. I want to train you. I want to teach you right now how to listen to the buzzwords of the elite. He gave me a few of them. And he said, you listen to these and then figure it out for yourself. Here's one right here. You probably saw it in the national media. He told me to listen to it. The International Monetary Fund. It was only a few days ago that they said, now pick out the buzzwords, and then I'll give them to you and explain them. He said, 15 major developing country governments, including the U.S., Japan, and the U.K., Spain, and Greece, must raise $10.2 trillion. And that's correct. You did not hear me say million or billion. Said they must raise $10.2 trillion to repay nothing but the interest only on the indebtedness of these countries. And then he said to me, can they do that? And I said, no. I said, it's a total impossibility. He said, now, listen to the rest of this. He said this $10.2 trillion that they must raise in order to pay the interest just on the debt alone is 27% of their combined annual economic output. He said, Chaplain, you cannot repay that. He said, all right. Now, he's training me to listen, and I did this years ago. I trained myself to listen to their buzzwords, but he's kind of helping me understand their very latest buzzwords, and I'm trying to help you understand them. Okay. Now, he said, if this can't be done, then what are they going to do about that debt? I said, they can't pay it. He said, that's right. He said, then what happens to the currency of the United States and Japan and the UK and Spain and Greece? I said, it's got to collapse. He said, now you're getting the message. He said, we told you all the time what was going to happen, but he said the average American hasn't got sense enough to understand what we're trying to say. Let me give you some more buzzwords. Take the COMEX silver exchange. He said, listen to what they told you last week. Are you ready? Now, you know what the COMEX silver exchange is. They're the ones that hold the silver in their vaults for the richest people on the face of the earth, the people in China and Japan and Russia and the wealthy people of the world. And then they give them a piece of paper saying, we are holding this silver for you. Now, he said the COMEX Silver Exchange announced just the other day that they have 107 million ounces of silver on hand. Now, you folks, you're listening. They've got 107 million ounces of silver on hand, but they have contractual obligations in the amount of 720 million ounces of silver that they've given out pieces of paper saying, we have this on hand and we can deliver it to you upon your request. Now, he said, Chaplain, whenever that people start to ask for delivery of that physical silver, he said, what is going to happen to the price of silver? He said, Mr. Fromm told you back about a year or two ago that the only thing you could spare your assets in is silver and gold. Now, folks, I don't sell silver and gold. You listen to Alex Jones. He'll tell you where to go and buy that. I'm just trying to tell you that they told me 2 years ago, Chaplain, there's only one way you're going to spare your assets, and that's silver and gold. Well, the price has gone so high, most people can't buy it. But I warned you back when you could get it for $600 and $700 an ounce that you ought to buy it immediately.
Well, let me go back, Lindsey. Let me go back. I mean, people say to me, well, why are you promoting silver and gold? And I've had national media ask me that, and I look at them like they're crazy, and I say, I was promoting gold when it was $300 an ounce. I was promoting silver when it was $5 an ounce because I knew they were devaluing the currency and it would come to a head and that they got rid of Glass-Steagall. I mean, it'd be kind of like if I moved to a resort town in Colorado and set up a canoe shop by a river. Well, why did you set up a canoe shop? Because there's tourists around here. I mean, it's like the George Soros media, they make it like bad to promote silver and gold when it's like common sense. I mean, it's just crazy that I believe in silver and gold. I've got guns. I've got storable food. I've got water filters. I'm trying to move right now to the countryside. I'll just be honest with folks. It's better than just leaving the country. People I know that are smart have moved out of Austin, far out in the country, and people that are smart are getting ready. Because let me tell you, when they tell you the economy's going to turn around, it's a lie, ladies and gentlemen. They've designed this. They're just stalling you long enough so they can make sure they're all prepared and got their grid in place. I'm sorry, Lindsey. It's just my job's easy.
Alex, I am so glad to hear you say what you just said. I want to congratulate you. You know where Mr. Schwartzman, you know who Schwartzman is? He's the head of the Blackstone Group.
Yes.
I keep up with these elites. And I have made a survey as to where the elite live. Where did Mr. Fromm live? He lived in the middle of nowhere. He lived way out in a little place called Saldot, Alaska, before he died. He moved to the middle of nowhere. Where does this other Mr. X of my book, Energy Non-Crisis, live? He lives back further than what Mr. Fromm lived. Now, what is Schwartzman of the Blackstone Group, which is he is probably the biggest financier of financial instruments in the United States of America, and he said last week, he said, I'm leaving the country. Now, I'm not leaving the country. Alex, you're not leaving the country.
Wait, that's a bombshell. He told you he's leaving the country himself.
Well, yeah, but you and I are not leaving the country. We're staying here. We're going to fight this thing out and see it through, and I want to continue to be able to be here to get information from these people and to give it out to you on the Alex Jones Show and every place I could possibly give it in order to help spare you. Listen,
I don't know how long we're going to be here. The stuff going on behind the scenes is just not...
Well, I'm glad you're moving out, though, Alex. Moving out to the country, moving out in the wide open spaces. I did the same thing. I live in the middle of nowhere, and you've got to make preparations right now. Okay, let me go back to their buzzwords again, because this fits right in with the European Union, and I'm not playing games. I just want to teach you how to listen to the buzzwords of the elite so you can do this for yourself, because I only have the privilege of being on Alex Jones' show maybe every once a month or two. But, okay, European Union. The European Union is going to have a major problem. I've already been told that. The euro will collapse before the American dollar. And whatever it does, you have 2 to 3 weeks to get out of paper. Do you remember what I told you that Mr. Fromm said to me back about 2 years ago? He said, Chaplain, if it's written on a piece of paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. He said, get out of anything that is paper. Now, do you realize what that means? That means get out of your IRAs, get out of your 401ks, get out of your retirement funds, cash in at any cost. I don't care what it may be. You're going to lose them anyway. If you don't, your Social Security, you cannot depend on it. I know you've got it right now, but you're not going to be able to depend on it for that long. You think your insurance policy is going to be worth anything whenever paper becomes worthless? And what is it that you and I use every day? We use the Federal Reserve note. And I have been told that when you see the euro collapse, you have 2 to 3 weeks to get out of every piece of paper you've got, including your bank account. If you don't, you're going to lose it. Alex, I don't know how any plainer I can put it. And they've said to me, okay, the other day one of them said to me, he said the Federal Reserve is borrowing $100 billion every 30 days. Does this scare you? It ought to scare the pants off of you. And Mr. Fromm told me 2 years ago, and I said it over your program, Alex, and that was before the Federal Reserve started buying their own debt. He said to me, Chaplain, whenever the Federal Reserve begins to buy their own debt, he said it's practically all over. Now, the Federal Reserve is buying their own debt because China and Japan and other countries aren't buying it like they did before. And last week, the Federal Reserve borrowed $100 billion every 30 days.
And by the way, that's only QE2. They've now announced QE3. They're going to start borrowing $200 to $250 billion a month.
Yes. And where's the 10-year note? Now, most people are not necessarily financially minded.
But they're dumping treasuries all over the world. Russia and China 2 weeks ago announced that they were going to stop using the dollar between trade. Now they have officially, in fact, that's in my stack, I didn't get to it today, Russia to use China currency. So we were wondering what it would be. It's going to be the Chinese currency for all their trade between each other, which is massive. They border each other. I mean, it's happening. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. Did your source, the former CEO, not Mr. X, the other Atlantic Richfield former head, did he say what the time frame was? He said the time frame on oil a month ago, and suddenly it's gone up 15, 20 bucks since then and racing up. Did he say the time frame on the euro default?
He did not say when the euro is going to collapse. He merely said it's going to. He said, let this be a sign to you. Whenever it happens, he said you've got 2 to 3 weeks to make some very definite preparations if you haven't already done it. Now, many things that in your life you will begin to need to make those preparations right now because, for instance, you can't get out of your IRA in 2 weeks. They just don't let you.
Well, Lindsey, here's an example with yours truly. All the money, almost all the money I've got is just sitting there in a bank to run this operation because it costs so much to run it. you know, it takes $1 million to run it for 6 months. Anybody who's got employees and buildings and payroll and taxes and insurance knows that. So we don't have a big reserve, but we've got something because our mission. So, I mean, what do I even do with that? That's what's so crazy about this situation is I have to leave it in the bank to pay the bills and run the operation. So I guess it makes my head hurt, Lindsey.
Well, yes, it does. It'll make your head spin. And those are things that we all need to think about in advance. Now, why am I saying this? And why does Alex say these things day after day? I'm not saying this to scare you. Quite to the contrary. I want you to prepare and spare yourself heartache and save your dinner table. That's the only reason I'm telling you these things, not to keep you awake at night, but to make preparations right now, because if you prepare for the inevitable, then when it does happen, there'll be very little effect on you while the rest of the world is totally collapsing around you.
Well, Lindsey,
now,
you're absolutely right. People say, oh, the government fearmongers. Alex, you fearmonger. The government fearmongers about boogeymen with turbans on their head, and we all know 9/11 was an inside job used to set up the police state grid. Anybody in denial about that is starting to wake up as they admit it's for the American people. I'm saying be concerned about dollar devaluation. Be concerned about globalism. Be concerned about carbon taxes. And it's all happening now. California's got over 30% unemployment. Even 60 Minutes admits that. And what do, Lindsey? They slapped a carbon tax at 20% on them. They want to run that economy down on the ground.
The elite want America to collapse. I have been told this. And you say, why would they want to collapse their own economy, their own country? Very simple. You never buy something when it's at its peak and making great money. Instead, you bankrupt it, get it on pennies on the dollar, just like they did Chrysler and General Motors. They waited until they first collapsed them. Then they took them over at taxpayers' expense through the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express. And the Federal Reserve basically are the elite and some others along with them. Now, whenever you collapse these corporations, then you can take them over for nothing. That's what they're going to do with the mortgage-backed securities and your house payment.
Yeah, first they sell it, though. First they sell it when it's all hot as hotcakes up front to everybody. Then when it implodes, they go, give us bailouts to fix it, and they keep the bailout money, and the derivatives are still there. Then they say, give us more bailout money, we'll fix it. Then they don't. Then everything implodes. They're flush with all the money. They come in and buy it all up for pennies on the dollar. And if you don't like it, they got the National Guard, the CIA, the FBI, and paramilitary squads ready to come and take you out. I mean, they've set this whole thing up.
They did set it up. And I was told this for the past 35 years, what they were doing, Alex, and I've had the privilege of from time to time being on your show and telling people this was going to happen. And I wasn't doing it to scare you. I was doing it because the elite told me this, and every single thing, folks, please, every single thing you're hearing Alex Jones say is the truth. You've got to listen to him every day and take to heart what he's saying. Now, Mr. Fromm told me a year and a half ago. You ready?
Yes.
I'll give you the expressions again. I've given them before, but I think you must hear these again. He said, within 2 years, you will not recognize America. Well, folks, you better believe that we're already beginning to see that take place. Again, he said, after 2 years, you will be so poor. I couldn't understand a year to a year and a half ago why this man was saying this. He said, within 2 years, you will be so poor, you will not be able to do anything about it. Folks, if we're going to turn America around, we've got to have massive movement immediately. And it can be done. Believe me, it can be done. He said again one day, he said, by 2012, the dollar will be dead. Well, they may accomplish that a little bit before 2012 at the rate they're going to Euro. It looks will have that happen before 2020.
No, even Wall Street Journal and Der Spiegel are saying the euro could go belly up any time.
Well, I don't think you're going to see it this week or next week. From what I was told by the other gentleman when Mr. Fromm passed away.
No, they're going to suck all the little countries dry first in the name of propping it up, and then bring down Germany, France, and England.
Yes, they are. And you're seeing some things happen in England. You said you were going to get it on the program yet today. So watch these things, because these are buzzwords. Again, he said to me, here back about a year and a half ago, he said, within 2 years, nearly everyone will be working for the government. Could we have possibly imagined General Motors and Chrysler and the banks being taken over, 9 to 10 of them almost every week, the health care program, bringing every doctor, dentist, and everybody in as employees for the government of the United States of America? We could not have imagined this at the time of this, that this man told me this. But it's taking place today exactly like he told me it would happen. Now he's saying that things are going to happen in Europe, and whenever they happen, you've got 2 to 3 weeks if you haven't already made certain preparation. And then, Alex, he told me something else recently.
Yes, give us the new intel, what you couldn't tell us until he'd passed from cancer. Tell us the new intel.
Well, first of all, Devil's Messiah. I know that this might seem insignificant to some, but it's very important to me, having been a minister of the gospel for over 50 years.
That's what they call it. They call it Devil's Messiah. What is it?
Yeah, the Devil's Messiah is that plan whereby they could bring in the New World Order in America, and they knew that there was no way that they could do it until they first removed the God and the foundation upon which America was built. And in order to bring that about, they had to bring in the evolution, they had to bring in control of churches by 501c3 organizational status.
Yeah, even if you're not a Christian, you have to understand social engineers have to get rid of the old order to bring in the new. So they've dumbed us down. They've taught us to not have morals, so we couldn't recognize tyranny and resist it.
Let me give you an example. This was just so startling the other day. The European Union. You remember when the European Union was first set up, and so many Bible teachers and ministers all over the country said, the European Union is the 10-toe kingdom of the book of Daniel, and we finally have all of these prophetic scriptures of the book of Revelation by the 10 nations formation in Europe. No way! This was deception. They were trying to make fools out of the ministers of America. I didn't know it at the time. I even used to talk about this. And then it went up to 11 nations, and 12 nations, and 13 nations. It went past 10, and utterly embarrassed some of the biggest Bible scholars in America.
Well, if you really study the Bible, it says there's many antichrists. There's models of it building. I mean, the globalists always, going back thousands of years, the Illuminists, they build similar models towards their final system.
Yeah, and they had this Devil's Messiah, as it was actually called. These were the exact words that the man used. He said, Devil's Messiah. And part of it, I found out, was this European Union, sure, it's all set up by the elitists. But they didn't stop at 10 toes, as Daniel talks about in his image.
Stay there when we come back. Give us
deception.
Lindsey, stay there when we come back. Tell us all the other things he told you. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an illegitimate banking takeover of our society. And for the globalists, world government is just the beginning. Then they can carry out the forced one-child policies, the forced abortions that Ted Turner, chairing a UN meeting, called for last Monday. Not this Monday, but last Monday, 8-9 days ago. And we had Lord Monckton on from there, the Associated Press, the Mexican newspapers. They all reported on it. We're going back to Lindsey Williams here in just a moment. But I want to just state the fact. This is illegitimate. This is criminal. That's why they've set up these paramilitary police forces. It's illegal to spy on our credit card purchases in real time. They do it. It's illegal to have our neighbors spying on us. They do it. It's telltale. I cannot stress this enough. Telltale oppression. It's hardcore, brazened, certified tyranny. It'd be like if you drove down through a country lane and saw a giant Charolais bull, big white bull, and you said, there's a big bull. And some idiot says, I don't see a bull. I mean, this is like watching a train coming towards you, a big locomotive, a speed train going 200 miles an hour, and people are denying that A, they're on a train track, and that B, a big light's coming toward them. And that's what's so frustrating about this. But I want to show a document cam shot, because this is big breaking news. Martial law, UK police chief mulls banning protest. This is big news. I want to make this the #1 Google search term today. And yes, Google blocks InfoWars and Prison Planet from their news feeds, but they cannot stop you from putting it on your news blog. and you get the traffic. I don't care about the traffic. I care about getting the word out. That's why I make $100,000, $150,000, this new film I'm working on for 2 years, probably $300,000 budget. And I've got to just go ahead and get it done. I just keep going and going and going. But the issue is that's why I put them out for free. They're all available online, higher quality at prisonplanet.tv if you want to support us. The DVDs are the highest quality. But it's all about getting the word out here. That's all we're trying to do. Because we don't have any future if we don't beat them. Don't you get that? This is real. I know most of you know that, but some of you haven't figured that out yet. You think, oh, some of this is hype. I can't express how insane it is. I can't cover every angle. Look, I want to make this a #1 search term. Martial Law UK. MARTIAL Law UK. The UK government thinks they're just going to come out and just calmly announce that, oh, we may ban it in London, all protests. We may ban it all over England. Those are the quotes. By the way, if you're doubting me, look at it. This is out of UK politics. This is out of Yahoo News. And you can pull up BBC, Press TV. It's all over the news. But our article is important because we're calling it what it is. Telescreens going in Walmart saying, don't trust your neighbor, spy on shoppers for Homeland Security. That's tyranny 1984. We call a duck, a spade, okay? So, martial law, UK police chief, moles banning protest. I was just going to have Lindsey go early today. I'm going to keep him to the end now. I just wanted to cover this now. Despite police being behind provocations, and Paul documents that in his article, that enraged demonstrators, Metropolitan Commissioner considers using Public Order Act to kill free speech. Launch this Google bomb that got us banned from Google News. I don't care. Launch this Google bomb, ladies and gentlemen, to get the word out. Peacefully resist martial law UK. 3 words, MARTIAL LAW, and then UK. Put it in Google, Yahoo, take the article, send it to everyone you know, post it on your blog, your news website, put it out everywhere, and then when people click on the #1 search term, it should become #1 the next 2 hours, they will go right to a page with links and your website. Google thought when they banned us we would stop doing this. You think we care? I mean, sure, it's great to have Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Respectively, you know, both each site bigger or as big as WorldNet Daily or some of the other old-line big sites. Sure, it's nice, but I don't care about that. All it does is put me in more danger. Don't you understand? I live in the real world, folks. I know what I'm saying is true. They've just calmly come out and announced, let me just read it and we'll go back to Lindsey. Despite police being behind provocateurs that enraged demonstrators, Metropolitan Commissioner considers using Public Order Act to kill free speech. UK Police Chief Sir Paul Stevenson is considering whether to ask the British government to ban protest marches altogether in response to last week's student riots, a move that would place Britain under a de facto state of martial law. Whenever you hear about a country going under martial law, they always say protest or banned. First, they train you to be in a free speech zone, or you can't protest in this area, or you got to have a permit. Then they just say no protest. It is one of the tactics we look at and something we will keep under review, and if we think it's the right thing to do, we'll do it, he told the Metropolitan Police Commission. In U.S. President Aaron Porter responded, peaceful protest is an integral part of our heritage, and it is the responsibility of the police to help facilitate that. And it goes on to document that the police actually have staged many of the events as they've been caught, not just in England, but worldwide. Let's make this article #1. We're going to get it up on Infowars.com right now. It's just on PrisonPlanet.com right now. Martial law, UK police chief, moles banning protest. Get it out to everyone. Lindsey, what is it like for you to see the TSA sticking their hands down people's pants, to see the naked body scanners, to see the telescreens going up on highways saying report on your neighbors? What is it like for you to see this unfolding? Well,
I'll tell you what happened to me personally. I said I will not travel by air anymore. Now, I was a commercial pilot for 30 years. I flew my own air service in Alaska. I have refused to travel anymore. I turned down a ticket last week of some people who wanted me to go to a certain place, and I said, as long as they're going to take me through a machine, that's the same as putting me in a microwave for so many seconds. I said, I will not do it. You realize when you go through those body scanners that it's the same as putting you within inside of a microwave?
No, it is microwave technology. The top scientists are all over the news saying cancer. I mean, in the TSA released scans, you see the bones in the fingers. I mean, it's an X-ray.
Well, it's dangerous. It's deadly. I mean, literally, it's deadly. You're subjecting yourself to death.
Well, it's the same thing with DU. For folks that don't get this, in 1991 and 96, the Army's own reports, official policy said, you breathe any of this, it's going to kill you. It may take a decade, it's going to do it. And then now they just tell the troops, no safety required, just enjoy the DU. I mean, something's changed, Lindsey. It's more than just greed. It's a spirit of pure evil. Everybody can feel it. I can't even go to Los Angeles now because I feel the evil so strong. And I've never said that on air, but I was talking to Jaron. He's the same way. Got a lot of friends there. The other night we went out and had dinner. I mean, I literally, L.A. is so evil now, I cannot enter the city, Lindsey. I feel it when I'm there, the oppression. And now I'm starting to feel it in other areas. Do you know what I'm talking about in your spirit?
Yes, the cancer rate, by the way, because of these new body scanners at the airport, the cancer rate 6 months, a year from now is going to go up so high, you can't even comprehend what's happening. I will not fly a commercial airline except in a dire emergency anymore. No way am I going to subject myself to that. And then to go through the embarrassment of a pat-down, come on, give me a break. This is contrary to the Constitution of the United States of America. Okay, very quickly, I know we're running out of time here, Alex, but let me give you a few statements that was made.
Yes, and then I know you're working on an audio or a video. You haven't mentioned that yet, so I want to make sure you do that. But, yeah, data dumping, quick statements. What else can you now say that Mr. Frum, who's now died, told you versus the other Mr. X who's still alive, the former CEO of a major big three?
Okay, I'll give you these in one-liners because I don't have time to explain any of them. He said, America, this is the elite's most difficult challenge. Now, folks, that means that if they think this is their biggest challenge, and this was said to me, it's their biggest challenge, that means we can turn this thing around. If you want to rebel enough, we can see it turn around. Another expression. Oh,
hold on. We may have to go into overdrive, Lindsey, but I've got all these meetings I've got to have after the show. That is such good news. I mean, this is going for broke. They're in danger because they're exposing themselves and uncloaking to try to get away with this. That's why they're trying to parade in the open with fake confidence. So the globalists don't think they're invincible. That's key information. Finish the devil messiah system. I mean, what is the devil messiah? Just a total spiritual takeover?
The devil's messiah is their method, and the latest one that was given to me was the European Union and the fact of the 10 toes. And they embarrassed so many ministers, I mean big names across America, who said this was the fulfillment of the book of Daniel and Revelation. And all in the world they were doing was an intentional program of embarrassment of the ministers of America. Another expression that we used to him recently, he said the elite plan to own everything in America. Well, you can readily understand how this can be if we bail out the mortgage-backed security problem and the elite take over every piece of mortgage real estate in America, whether it's commercial or residential, and you'll be making your payment to the Federal Reserve. You'll see this happen shortly. Again, I can't stress enough to you folks, I plead with you, get every piece of gold and silver you can get your hands on. You haven't seen anything yet. If you think gold at $1,400 an ounce is high, what are you going to say when it's $3,000 an ounce?
All right, Lindsey, continue. What are the other bullet points people need to know?
Okay, gasoline. We're already $3 a gallon in Phoenix, Arizona. You're going to go to $4 a gallon as quick as they can get it there. Again, Russia and China. This is America's greatest threat. Before Mr. Fromm died, he went into details on this with me, and I plan to make an entire presentation just of this sometimes in the future. He said China is the big ones. Again, an elitist who knows how to be cured of cancer. Mr. Fromm wouldn't go that route because he had a son who was a medical doctor. He convinced him to take the... Okay,
so that's another issue. What else was there that you couldn't tell folks that you can now tell them?
Okay, this basically are the points, but the buzzwords are what are so important because they tell you everything of what the elite are going to do. And because of that, I have listed 12 things that you positively must do immediately in order to spare yourself in light of what these people have told me. You've got to watch insider trading. Oh, my goodness, people, have you seen what's been happening there in the last few days of how insider trading has gone up so much? The elite, the CEOs, the corporate heads, they know what's coming. And as a result, insider trading has just gone to unbelievable heights. The very latest one that was recorded here was November the 15th through the 19th. Insider trading went to 8,280 to 1. Do you realize the CEOs and the corporate heads are bailing out because they know what Mr. Fromm told me back a year or two ago, and they're just beginning to see it, and they're cashing out for everything they're worth? But yet your broker will still try to get you into the New York stock market. It's wild. That's right.
And
right now.
Lindsey, again, this is important. Because think there's so many points, we're moving fast here. What else? Because you said there was a lot of stuff. What else did Ken Fromm tell you that you couldn't talk about until he was dead and buried?
Okay, I'll give you a few pointers, and each one of these I could at least take an hour on. The Arab world. He went into depth into the Muslims, jihad, and the United Arab Emirates in Saudi Arabia. Again, he has gone into depth with me in lengthy conversations.
What is he saying briefly is going to happen there? And we'll have you back soon, but what did he say briefly that's going to happen there?
In where now?
In the Arab world. What was the big key thing there?
Well, of course, they brought the price of crude oil down, and he told me why they did that. And it was in order to put some of these countries into a certain position where they wanted them. And now, of course, they've lowered the value of the dollar to the point that even though they may get $100 to $150 a barrel for their oil, they're still getting in purchasing power as far as the American dollar, which they're locked into, and they can't get out of it. Russia and China can get out of use of the American dollar, but Saudi Arabia all those countries over there, they can't get out of this because they were locked into it, according to Henry Kissinger back many years ago in the agreement that he made with them. So as a result, even though they may get $150 a barrel for their oil, they'll still only be getting about $50 in purchasing power of the American dollar. I mean, this is so startling to understand the inside workings of all of this as to how they're doing it.
Amazing. Any other bullet points?
Well, yes, he's gone into Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan. He made it very plain that while we're in Afghanistan and the agreement that was made by Henry Kissinger with back in years ago in Iran and Iraq wouldn't go along with it. And as a result, it was intentionally done that we went in there, did what we did to Iraq. We just haven't been able to do it to Iran yet. Let's see. He's gone into depth about the world order and George Herbert Bush, Daddy Bush. Again, he's gone into depth about the devil's Messiah. Again, he went into some depth with me about America and the elitists and their most difficult challenge, which is the United States of America. Surprising how much trouble they've had with America and with our presidents. And, of course, I know that... Well, anyway, I won't go into this present president because that's a subject within itself. Gull Island, the Arctic Wildlife Refuge, the Bakken Reserve, and how that we would not have to take one drop of oil from any foreign country if we would just use what's on our own soil. And, of course, he was the one that gave me the information in my book, Energy Non-Crisis.
Lindsey, I want to stop you there and come back. Lindsey, I want to and stop you there and come back in the final segment and get into more of what the other Mr. X has told you. But briefly here, I know we contacted you, and you're just now getting done with it, but you're always putting out an audio CD or a video through the Prophecy Club, great folks that you work with. Do you have this latest info in a book or video or on a CD?
I recorded the words of the elite. Folks, are you hearing me? I recorded the words of the elite and their spokespeople, and we have put it into 2.5 hours of presentation. Everything that they have told me to listen to, and they've explained their buzzwords, and I give you every bit of it. You will never hear this anywhere. They're actual recordings of their voices and them telling me what they're doing and what they're going to do.
But to be clear, your insiders told you where stuff was hidden in plain view, and so you've put it into a presentation where everything they told you about was actually said in what, mainstream media?
It was said by them. It was said in mainstream media. You will hear explanations of this.
So you were able to go out and find where they'd said some of this stuff publicly. Okay, and what's the website for that, Lindsey?
Go to prophecyclub.com if you wish. prophecyclub.com.
All right, well, tell us the name of it when we come back and the phone number. Then I want to race through kind of an overview and anything else we haven't covered dealing with this EU collapse. Final segment with our guests. We've got some other very informative guests coming up on Thursday and jam-packed on Friday. Governor Ventura for his last radio interview of the year. He will be leaving then to Mexico, but he really wants to talk about WikiLeaks, the police state, the special episode of the Pentagon strike, the 9/11 investigation, the final episode of the season. Just such a great guy, and I'm honored to be really good friends with Governor Ventura and to have really gotten to know him well. He's a great guy. I disagree with some of his political views, but more and more he's really getting more hardcore and more informed. And it's going to be amazing having him on with some of the things he's going to be talking about. And we've also got a former Dallas Cowboy we've interviewed before, who's a 9/11 truther, who's going to be making a big announcement here on the show Friday. We've got a bunch of really informative things happening. Lindsey, briefly, what is the name of the new video that you've put together that has all this in it that's available at prophecyclub.com?
You want to get the confession of an elite. Now, Alex, I recorded this just in time for your show today. No one has ever had this before. I wanted to wait until after Mr. Fromm's funeral. And the family, out of respect for them, I did not want to release this until then. You actually hear the voice of the elite. I've never done this before, ever. And then you'll hear my narration of everything they're saying. You will know everything is going to happen for the next 6 months. And through the year 2012, Confession of the Elite, please give a call to our toll-free number. It's 888-799-6111. Or go on the web if you don't want to talk to a person. Go to prophecyclub.com, prophecyclub.com, 888-799-6111. Confession of an Elite. You have never, I was amazed. When I put this together, I couldn't believe what I was hearing myself, because they told me things, and then they told me where to go to get
Well,
things.
Lindsey, we're almost out of time, but we're blessed to have you and the intel you've gotten over the years. We've only got about a minute left here. And I want to remind folks, we're trying to make the #1 search term today, martial law UK, where they're now saying, oh, we're looking at banning protest, period. I mean, and then, arresting people on death penalty who leak information. Did your sources talk about any type of internet 9/11 or event to try to curtail free speech? I mean, I remember 2 years ago you said the media would be the last thing to go. They would crash the economy and then shut the media down. Did they say anything else about that?
Yes, the last person in America that they're going to bridle is you, Alex. Now, I mean, they said this. The last person that they're going to stop is the conservative, or you, people like you and others that are out there telling the story. And the reason is because they know that the day that they shut you down, you will holler so loud by some method that likewise the liberal media will be bridled also. So
yeah, they know that's something that'll unify us. They know that will, kind of like their attempt to execute Assange, is really starting to wake up liberals and conservatives to go, wait a minute, this is really dangerous. Lindsey, obviously we're going to have to get you to pop in next week. I'm going to be out of town, but Watson's going to be here with any updates. But again, I'll be back live throughout the week. Just incredible information. Lindsey, God bless you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Alex.
There goes Lindsey Williams with a lot of new information. We had a record internet audience. We use that as a gauge, just off the charts. Folks listening at Infowars.com. Don't forget the free podcast you can download daily. Just at the top of every article, you see a eye icon. That's the free podcast. The free audio streams. We're really reaching a lot of people. We're having a big effect. And we're going to continue to fight the globalists together. Let's make martial law UK the #1 search term. Stay with us. We'll be right back in retransmission. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.